Welcome to Straight Talk Sacred Pathway. I'm Stuart Wellborn, a British author and former therapist, and each week I sit down with Wa-Na-Nee-Che, a spiritual elder from Turtle Island, to explore the deeper truths behind healing, ceremony, and connection to Source. Good afternoon, isn't it, for you?
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to talk about
Well,
specifically?
pretty well discussed everything. Just waiting for people to understand that I'm not going to be around forever, so they better ask the questions now, otherwise the knowledge goes with me.
I do have something that came up for me today to ask you. More about the history of your people with regards to psychology and stuff. Because tomorrow I'm doing a talk locally, whether anyone turns up is another matter, but about the difference between reacting and responding to things that go on. And that got me thinking about an hour ago. Psychology, as one of the sciences, is reasonably new as a social science, only over 100 years. And most of it is based on Europeans, isn't it? The psychology, neuroses, and all those kind of things. Now, we, generally speaking, until Columbus came over, you were all on your own and didn't have to worry about us or Africans or anything like that. But the rest of the world, if you look at history, we've had that animal nature, we've had slavery, torture, wars, and all that kind of stuff going on. Did you not have any of that going on when we were?
And in the beginning, no.
No.
It was almost like because of the cruelty that immigrants did to Native people became cruel. Like they would never go in and just kill people to kill them. That's why they invented owning the coop. If you were an enemy and I rode up to you with a stick and I tapped you on the shoulder, that basically said, I had your life. And that's all it did. They didn't kill him, they just counted coup. So that's the way they used to deal with their battles. And the taking of horses, say, for instance, was a game to see who could steal whose horses. So there was almost like, if you look at the early African continent, the Africans never killed each other. They would have wars where people would come and they'd gather and they'd throw spears at each other, but the spears were never close enough to kill anybody. Then they both went back home and said, we won. So there were no losers in there. And it wasn't until Shaka Zulu came into power that he learned from the occupation on how to kill people.
Well, yes and no on that, because Egypt is part of Africa.
Yeah.
They were, having wars. I mean, look at the biblical stories of all the different tribes killing each other. Some of them are Middle East, but some of them are African. So you can't say that Africans were all dancing around having a lovely time and not killing each other. I mean, I'm not sure about Africa, but you got the Polynesians with head shrinking and
Yeah.
cannibalism and all those kind of things. They're not European inventions.
Well, you got to remember too, now, Egyptians weren't really part of Africa, even though they were sitting on top. They were their own nation, their own culture, their own everything. And there was a time that Egypt was actually pretty peaceful when religion played a role in it. But otherwise, they were just like anybody else. They were violent. They utilized wars to justify their existence. But just like the cannibalism was more or less the Polynesians,
Yeah, that's what I say.
uh, whereas the Africans themselves were quite peaceful. It wasn't until later they became violent because of oppression. And we've got to remember, it's almost like what you do unto me, I do unto you. So they kind of learned that lesson. So then they became violent themselves, just like the indigenous people understood everything, nature. Well, when the French came in up in the north, where they established the Hudson Bay Company, Well, they introduced the gun. And the native indigenous people up there wanted the guns. One way they got it was by trading furs for them. So they went out and they went against nature. And they almost killed everything that had a hide on them. They killed just for that rifle. So again, French influence changed them because they wanted something and the French wanted something back. So they taught them how to basically go against nature. So everything that was taught came from European, came from Asia, came from other parts of the world. That once they got here, they start teaching them to be violent.
So essentially, I mean, you've got a lot of land mass, haven't you, until we come over. Uh, so it was essentially one big hippie commune until, like, we came over then.
Yeah. The only thing that changed was when the Nakota, Dakota, and Lakota didn't want to be ruled by women. So they tried to take over the family. So that was one of the first recorded aggressions by indigenous people against indigenous people. Of course, they lost, so they were kicked out of Canada.
So tribes, a lot of wars, even though they're under the banner of religion or whatever, is resources and land that it boils down to. Recently, we've seen that with the oil of Venezuela, haven't we? But
Yeah.
so before Europeans or anybody came over, that kind of thing wasn't going on, trying to get more resources.
No, because there was so much resources too. Why fight over them?
Yeah, well, that
You know,
makes sense.
yeah, there was basically room for everybody to move around. They didn't infringe on anybody. Even when they came together in a hunting area, they would establish a game, and whoever won the game got first choice of the hunting area. But the indigenous people got what they needed. They didn't take any more than what they needed, and then they left and let the other tribe come in and get what they needed. But there was always plenty of around, so they never had to fight about it. They would invent a game to do it.
So you didn't have, depending on how you want to look at the evolution of man, but let's look at Europe, for example. All the countries at war: England, France, England, Spain, Germany, Prussia, all those fighting over resources and things, greed and all those kind of things. You didn't have any of that then.
No, it was basically everything was shared.
But what about the animal nature? Because that's what I try to. What got me thinking was that with psychology, we look at the animal instincts, like the drives for sex, and if somebody pisses you off, then you something within you comes up, the animal side that either wants to, the fight or flight and all those kind of things. Did your ancestors not have those animal drives in the same way that the rest of the world did then?
Well, you got to remember too, a lot of the animals, in a way, they flourished. Look at the buffalo, millions upon millions upon millions. As soon as it became a market for them, the immigrants went there and almost made them extinct because it was what everything seems to be ruled by greed, by the money. If you make money, we'll destroy it. And even in nature itself, you got to remember that a lot of the wolves were the first dogs of the tribes. They befriended each other. So again, if there were millions and millions of buffalo, why did it continue to be millions and millions of buffalo? Because the native people didn't hunt them for sport or their means of making money because they didn't have no need for money. So they only took what they need. They took everything that, whenever they killed something, they used everything that they killed. And a lot of stories come to where if you go hunting and say your tribe is starving and there's an elk herd, and you did a ceremony the night before for the hunt, the oldest elk would come to you because he had lived a good life, so he wanted to continue to give himself to the people. So they wouldn't have to go and run chase, the animals would actually come to them to give themselves up so that they could survive.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. What I'm on about is the animal nature of in man, the instinctive things to defend yourself and attack. You know, like in modern day, we have road rage, for example.
Uh-huh.
That's that is a primitive part. This is I'm talking of the psychology of it. You know, the autonomic nervous system and all that nonsense. Is that our nervous system thinks, "Oh, you nearly killed me," so we go into the fight or flight, which
Uh-huh.
road rage is the fight side of it. It's not something that our neocortex thinks about and rationalizes, because if you were rational about it, you'd go, well, they missed me. You
Yeah.
know, it was a close call. Did you not have any of that going on?
Oh yeah, right now they're going on because again, remember, a home is, I think this is what gets me though. Um, home is a man's castle. Is it not also a woman's castle?
Yeah.
But because the home is the castle, you have the right to defend it. So when the people are on the road with the car, they own it, so they have the right to defend it. So again, possession.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. These are things that we don't have control over. Did your people, your ancestors, not have those kind of things come up then? Like people pissing you off and you wanting to punch them, for example.
Yeah, anger is an emotion, so there had to be some anger, but they never took it out on other people. They would just go sometimes to the spiritual person, and they would get the anger out. It's just like I tell people, when you get angry, one of the best solutions for anger is humor. If you get real angry, think of something very that makes you really laugh, and the next thing you're not angry anymore, and you can resolve that issue because you're not looking at just at anger. You're looking at, well, it makes me feel better if I can resolve it.
Yeah.
That's why I like in England, when two people, like when a husband and a wife, or even a boyfriend and a girl, get into an anger to say, fair enough, time out. And then they go and they think about it. You gotta, every time we've had wars or every time we've had conflict with even with a family, it's because we don't think before our mouth speaks.
Yeah, that's what my talk's about. Is it's a reaction rather than a response. A
Yeah.
reaction is that animal bit that I'm talking about. The response is when you go higher level. Yeah, I'm overreacting.
And it's just like, again, somebody, when I was younger, somebody come up to me and said, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. I looked at him and I said, what are you going to do with my clothes? And it kind of diffuses him because all of a sudden he thinks of the humor and he forgets why he's coming after you. So then you sit down and say, well, why you want to fight me? Why you don't do this? Well, what's called said? And you say, wait, someone said,
Yes.
ask me. Ask me if I said that. And then if they ask you, then you say, okay, no, I didn't say that. Somebody's trying to get you and me to fight because they want to see somebody get hurt. And I said, let's find out the truth of who I am and who you are, and let's see if there's anything to settle, which I believe probably 99% of the time, there's nothing to settle because nothing was ever said.
Oh, that's such a big thing, isn't it? Well, so and so said this about you, and they said that you said this.
It's just funny how people will take other people the word for something without going directly to the person that you need to ask. It's just like when I was a police officer, these two girls got in a fight, and one broke a bottle, and the other one had a small knife. And I said, "What are you guys going to do?" "Oh, I can beat her." "No, no, I can beat her. I'm tougher than her." I said, "So you guys really want to fight?" "Yeah." I said, "Okay, go ahead. One of you are going to lose." "Yeah, it's going to be her." "No, it's going to be her." "No, both of you are going to lose." "How is that?" "One of you are going to get hurt, probably stabbed and have to take to the hospital. The other one I'm going to arrest." They kind of look at her. Well, there's nobody's going to win. I said, that's correct. So I said, let's first of all, let's get together and figure out why you guys want to fight. And again, it was hearsay. 90% of the fights that happen is hearsay.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I might be talking from a, my talk tomorrow is all about that, responding rather than reacting. But as a young man in the Navy and things like that, I've threatened a few people over the times on pure hearsay.
Yeah,
I heard you said this about me. Come on, then, step outside.
yeah. Just like saying that I can pick up that chair. Then you say, well, go pick up the couch. I can't. I say, why can't you? Because I'm not strong enough. Well, why can't you get people to help you? So you have to find some kind of solution, of what's happening. And I've learned quite a bit, even when I was over in Middle Piccadilly, and they had a big festival going on. And I went around, I did my talks and everything. And when I got done and everything, let me get rid of this thing.
What, Matthew?
Oh, it's not marketing. And I sat there, and then at the end, everybody was going home, and I was walking by, and this little girl was just crying her heart out. And her mom and dad were trying to stop her. She wouldn't stop. I walked up, what's the matter? She said, my friends are leaving. I said, you're going to miss them? Yeah. Did you have fun when you were here? Yeah, we did this, we did that. We were really, really great friends. I said, close your eyes, and I think of all the fun you had. So she closed her eyes, and she stopped crying. And I said, now open your eyes. Now remember, this is a yearly thing. Yeah. I said, so your friends are going to be back next year. So think of all the good times you had with them and look forward to when you meet them again, and you're going to have more fun. And I completely stopped her from crying, and she's big smile on her face. Yeah, she goes. And her parents just looked at me, how'd you do that? I said, just being honest.
So have you always had that kind of vibe about you then? Because as I just pointed out, and this is once again still that psychology thing, I've grown from being like a young idiot
Yeah.
European that like may have got into a scrape or two over the years to somebody who thinks that fighting's daft now and that there's ways to resolve things without it. Not saying that, they're into time when you may have to punch somebody in the throat because it's the last resort, but it's not the first resort anymore. Was you never like that then?
No. One thing I've learned too, like through martial arts, how easy it is to kill somebody.
Yes.
And people don't realize when you get in a fight, you get in a lucky punch. That's it. You may have won the fight, but you're going to jail. And then all of a sudden, oh, I should never got, well, you should never got in a fight in the first place. I always walked away from fights. I don't know why, but I walked away from fights. But put a pair of boxing gloves in me. Watch out. Because the boxing gloves gave me a sense that I can knock them out, do this, but I can't really hurt them. So I was just completely changed when I put those boxing gloves in. Nobody could defeat me, but I refused to fight barehanded.
Well, over the years, I've run towards fights and away from them, so I've done both. But it's an interesting point you made there because it revealed it to me, I think, more when I worked in prisons. Was like some of the prisoners pissed up on a Saturday night, punched somebody, over something stupid. That person they hit the head on the curb, died, and now that person's spending 10 to 12 years in prison over
Yep.
something stupid. And I think that was probably a bit of an eye opener for me.
And then, like in the traditional way, if something happened, say you're in a battle, and your brother's with you in a battle, and in that battle, something would happen, and your brother was killed. It now became the responsibility of your brother to take care of his family.
All right.
If people sat there and if they did something, if they had to take on the responsibility of supporting a family, I wonder how long they would do it.
Yeah, but that's the problem. It's people don't think this is back to that animal nature, isn't it? Again, that I'm on about that. There's no logic on a Saturday night when you've had alcohol and like, you know, there are some people. Oh, you looked at my beer, and they'll start a fight over it. They're the kind of people that just go looking for fights. But then there's the other people that, because they've had a beer, somebody pushes them, they push back, and then it escalates. That's not logical brain working in. That's that animal thing I'm talking about.
A lot of it is the, the thrill they get out of violence.
Yeah.
Like my brother, right? He always went out looking for trouble because he knew he could kick the shit out of anybody. And he did get into fights. And, now it's just the opposite. It's like when I was working as a police officer, we had a problem with young women getting pregnant. So what I did was I started this program in the schools and took all these ladies from 15 to 18. And they had to give up their Saturday and Sundays to go and babysit.
Right.
And the pregnancy rate dropped 90% because they found out that when they have kids, the responsibility that comes to those kids knocks the hell out of their private life. So it was a quite a good little program, where, it helped young girls realize, do you want to be tied down by kids? If you don't, then take precautions.
Yeah. Okay, back to right. We're talking about the animal. I say animal, but that's perhaps not the best word for it. But that Jung might call it the shadow, the instincts that come up that make young men fight. That's where I was going with it. Yeah, I knew when I obviously being in the Navy, we go out ashore, we drink, and we're known for a couple of things: a girl in every port, and fighting and drinking. Some of the lads, it wasn't a good night if they didn't get into a fight.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, for most of my Navy career, as I say, I did get into a few scrapes. Not at the start of my career. I built up to that. But my thing was going out and looking more for the girl in the port and having a good laugh and dancing.
Yeah.
Why is it that some people want to fight then and some people just want to have fun, in your opinion?
You got to look at your surroundings, your environment. You're on a ship and you're under, how would you say it, the captain or the admiral or ensign, whatever, have power over you. They tell you what to do and you have to do it.
Yeah.
So then you get into a situation where you're the authority and you take things in your own hand. Well, I can do this now. And away you go to violence. Whereas when you're on that ship, it's so strict that the only way you can let off steam is when you're off the ship. So a lot of it is releasing a lot of pressure and tension and frustration that has built up while you're on that ship. So you take it out on other people.
I'll get that from that perspective. But what I meant was, what is it about people? Because take the Navy bit out of it. Some people want to go out and have a fight, like you were saying about your brother. And then there's other people that are opposed to it. And then there's people like myself that just want to get on the dance floor and have fun and try and score.
They're basically, it's a kind of like an ego thing that they can beat this person, not beat that person. But the other one too is when they get beat up, it's like they want to get punished.
Right.
So they go out and they go look for trouble just to get beat up.
Yeah, well, I've got another friend. He wasn't in the Navy. This was one of my, I guess you'd call him a biker type, mate. Even though he looked like a biker, but doesn't actually ride motorbikes. But he was a nightmare when we used to go out in Derby. He'd always want to fight bouncers. And weirdly, I've got a, stepbrother, but this was only 20 years ago. So he became a stepbrother when we were in our 30s. So we grew up together, so we'll just chat now and again. But he was telling me about someone from this club we used to go to called the Rock House, saying, "Oh, this guy, he would let somebody kick him in the head, kick him in the head, so that the fight could start." And that happened to be my mate. I was like, "Yeah, that sounds about right for him." So he would literally go out and find the biggest people like Dorman and all that, and always start a fight because you're like, "Oh my god, here we go." Why?
You know, I only got into maybe one fight when I was like about, oh, maybe 5, 6 years old. And when I got into high school, there was one bully who kept trying to fight me, and I'd always walk away. So we graduated, and it was the last day of school, and the last day I would go to school. So I'm walking there, and he comes over. He said, "This is the last day of school." He said, "So I'm going to beat the shit out of you." I looked at him and I said, "Do you really want to fight?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Hold my book." So he grabbed my books. I kicked him in the groin. Fight over. And it never bothered me after that because he said, "You fight dirty." I said, "Well, I don't want to get hurt. I'm
I
going to
fight
take
to
you.
win.
I'm going to take you out any way I can." And that was probably the only second fight I ever got into. And it was just like you say, when in the Navy, I was in the Army, and I was stationed overseas in Korea. And every other weekend, it seemed like the Hispanics and the blacks would go at it. There was a kind of a little restaurant type place that they served a little bit of food and everything like. And it seemed like they would gather down there once every 2 weeks, and away they go. And they'd come out to me, and they thought I was Hispanic. I said, "Look, you mess with me, I'm going to take your scalp. I'm going to take your hair." "What? You're Hispanic?" I said, "No, I'm indigenous. I'm native." And they, "Oh, okay, we'll leave you alone." But it seemed like they wouldn't mess with the Native Americans there because there was only three of us, but it was always Hispanic versus the blacks.
Yeah, it's funny how these things happen. I mean, for the Navy, for us, it was we go into a port. What other country's Navy is there? We're going to fight with them. We fought with the Americans all the time.
Yeah,
Because not no offense to you, because you're not an American as such, but they'd always try and drink with us, and like, you don't drink with the British Navy. We can drink anybody under the table, and then
I,
go back to work.
I proved that wrong though. I met this one guy who was in the Navy in England, and he said, "I can drink." I said, "Well, Native Indians can drink too." And they said, "Well, I drink you under the table." I said, "I don't think so." Well, at the bar I went to, they really knew me. They knew I didn't drink. So I said, "Okay, since you're challenging me, I'm going to name the poison." He said, "What is it?" "Tequila." Okay. So I went to the waitress. I said, "I want you to bring tequila, but in mine, I want you to put water. In his, get him a double shot of tequila." Well, it was under the table after a while. Next day, he come back and, "My God," he said, "you native people can drink." Never got challenged again. I had a lot of fun with the Navy people. When I say
Yeah, well,
God,
that's cheating. You didn't win.
yeah,
As I
yeah.
say, nobody drinks the Royal Navy under the table.
We sat there. They had their Navy cap on. I had my Army cap on. I said, "How long did it take you after you got off that ship to stop going like this?"
Yeah, just take you a little bit once you get rid of it. Uh, we've got 10 minutes left, you were saying. Sticking within the parameters of what I started off with about the psychology of different people and stuff. Did ancient or your ancestors have neuroses? Like we have all different conditions like obsessive compulsive disorders and generalized anxieties, phobias, schizophrenia, all sorts of things going on in the West. Did you have any of that going on?
Yeah, we had a few things going on. Like, say, for instance, let's take, oh, Think of like what you call lesbians. Uh, there were a number of cases in which we had people basically who were not a man. A man was being a woman was being a man. But you know, it's funny, we honored them. We didn't chastise them or anything. We honored them as being special.
Well, whilst in the earlier days of psychotherapy, that would be classed as a neurosis, and I haven't studied anything on transgender, so I can't really weigh in on it from a psychological point of view. But that's not really what I was on about as a
Yeah,
neurosis.
I
I'm
know
on about like
that's what
phobias and
I'll get
stuff.
into it now. The whole idea comes down to the fact that number one, so many things go into your life in Europe, in Asia, that basically cause you a lot of issues, a lot of problems that are stuck into your subconscious.
Hmm.
So you become schizophrenic. You become ill in other areas. But if your life is completely balanced, like it was in the indigenous world, you didn't have those problems.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
It
You
was
didn't have
completely
like
free.
phobias and things then?
Yeah. I think the only person that ever had that I know of that, but that was in later years, was Crazy Horse. He
What an
always
age.
had problems with women's husbands.
Oh.
So, but again, you know, when you're balanced with nature and everything's there for you, there's nothing that basically works on your mind. There's nothing that's in your subconscious. Everything is freely given. It's like when you're talking about the animals. Why do you think we have energies that a lot of people will attach? They'll have this particular energy inside of them. Well, if you have the buffalo energy, you can talk to the buffalo. If you have the bear energy, you can talk to the bears. But if you're a buffalo, you don't want to go talk to a bear.
Talking of animal energy, I've just literally got to go for a second because I've got a cat energy screaming at my door. So I've just got to go and let him in. But if you want to carry on talking about it, it's up to you, or I'll cut it out when I come back.
Yeah, when we look at it, the problems that are caused by society plays on the subconscious. And because it plays on the subconscious, it gives us all kinds of complexes. Whereas a native, we didn't have these complexes because we didn't have the problems that Europe, Asia had. We sat there and we didn't have to deal with them because we didn't have any. That's why you didn't have people that were schizophrenic. You didn't have people who had complications that were serious because it was always open to them and they were never bombarded with problems.
No, that's really interesting because that does kind of answer my question, really, because I hadn't really thought about it until today,
Yeah.
preparing for my talk, is all the neuroses and things that I've studied, you know, Freud, Jung, and Adler, and all these things. And then you go, it's all based around Europeans and maybe Middle East a little bit and Asia, but generally speaking, it's based on Europeans. And I thought, well,
Well, it's just like women of the world would love to go back to the indigenous way of life. Because nowadays, when we look, say, for instance, at divorce, everybody's at each other's throats. In the indigenous way, if a woman didn't acknowledge you as her husband anymore, when you came back to the village, to the tent, your weapons were outside, your horse was outside, your clothes were outside, you were divorced. She kept everything else because the man was there for one reason, and that was to provide protection and food.
and what was the woman's job then?
To take care of the TV, take care of things that was necessary, cooking, uh, making the clothing, and watching the children.
Were there any? I know. Essentially, you're saying until Europeans came over, there wasn't any violence in the say. You know, no scalping, no raids or anything like that. And but a Comanche brave or something like that is a warrior, yeah?
Yeah.
Were there ever female braves?
Yeah. There was actually women warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple of women warriors that defeated Custer.
Were there?
Yeah, and women would when the men were away, they protected the tribe, and there was hardly any, say for instance, violence. But there were occasions when there was violence. Say for instance, one warrior would do something to another warrior. Well, rather than punish, sentence him or anything, what they did was they shunned him.
All right.
He kicked him out of the tribe. He could not come back to the tribe. He couldn't talk to anybody at the tribe. They all turned their backs on him. And that was a horrible punishment for them. So when you look at it, there wasn't that much violence among people, among warriors and warriors, because number one, they didn't want to be shunned.
So, but because if you look at a lot of the hunter-gatherer tribes that are still around the world, and I'm not trying to get into a gender argument here, but in those tribes, the men go off hunting, the women do, like you were saying, the TP and stuff like that, and preparing the food. I just was curious, because as far as I'm aware, there are no female Maasai warriors. There were female braves then.
No warriors, yeah. When the men were away, the women became, it really gets me kind of irritated when I watch all these Westerns where the soldiers come in and just start killing people and everybody starts running. The women wouldn't run.
Right, yeah, because that's what I was just going to say is like when you see like Little Big Man, for example, when they come and kill everybody, the women are running off, aren't they?
A lot of the women, confronted the soldiers, and of course the soldiers had guns, so what could they do? But they still would protect the family.
Yeah, because that's an instinctive thing in a mother, isn't it?
I think that the only society I've ever seen where the women were the warriors was in Greece. When Alexander left to conquer the world, he actually formulated a battalion of women. And the women were more fierce than the men.
No. We're going to have to wrap there. Maybe this is a conversation for next week. We can talk about female warriors then, because any second now we will be cut off, because I know we're into the last minute. So this has been a fascinating chat, Wa-Na-Nee-Che, and we've talked about something different for a change.
Yeah.
So hopefully someone will come and join us and ask questions next week from your group. Now you've started approving the posts.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Straight Talk Sacred Pathway. If you'd like to ask Wa-Na-Nee-Che a question, you can email me at stuart@realityresponsibility.com. The link will be in the description. And don't forget, you can download a powerful guided meditation for free at humancircleoflife.com.